Hello everybody, and welcome back to Traps Tuesday Toots. Today we're going to be talking about mob spawners, and specifically we're going to be focusing on zombie and skeleton mob spawners, but a lot of the mechanics are the same. You just have to change the way you deal with mobs and the heights you drop them from, etc, etc. But today we're going to be looking at zombie and skeleton mob spawners. First things first, you're going to find a little mob spawner room similar to this. There'll be a couple chests, there'll be a mob spawner, and it will be built out of cobble, and you'll be finding these in your caves and underground areas. So when you're digging around, you might run into one. Now, when you first find it, there's a decent chance it's going to be full of some scary, dangerous mobs. So the first thing you got to do is fight them. And once you've wiped them out, light it up as quickly as possible. I recommend actually putting torches about like this. Guarantees you aren't going to accidentally have mobs spawning in here, which is good. Now, in this particular world, this is a mob spawner room I've created. And as you can see, we are actually in my creative test world. But this is the mob spawner and how it's going to look. So everything we're going to talk about now is what you're going to have to do in survival, but we're going to be doing it here in creative. So first things first, what you're going to want to do is dig out these walls. And dig out all of the walls so that you have a 4 wide floor here. So you would grab whatever building block you want. Cobblestone would be great, and you should have a lot of it if you've been mining, but I'm going to use iron so you can tell what would be the added blocks versus the original blocks. Now you're going to want to leave the ceiling intact. And obviously if you are underground, these blocks that I'm adding for the walls could just be blocks that you leave. As well as the ones I'm putting down for the floor. They could also be... Actually, you know what? We don't want to put floor blocks there. Of course not. But there would be a floor there. You will have to dig out. This is where the wall's going to go. Because you're going to build 4 out from the spawner on all sides. Technically, you only need to go 3 out on one side. Well, on 2 sides, because it's an 8x8 spawning area that the spawners actually have. However, if you go 4, you don't have to worry about direction, so I just recommend it. Plus the water works a little bit better and everything works better on odd numbers, so I would go out 4. Alright, so now that you have your walls built up and dug out, and you have your full ceiling in, now if there are holes in the wall because there's a natural cave here or whatever, fill those in. You don't want to have anything interfering with your mob spawning. You don't want your mobs to be able to escape or anything weird to go on. So just make sure you fill those up. And then the next step I actually recommend doing right now is break the torch on top and place 2 blocks on top of this. The reason being, you don't want mobs to spawn on top of the spawner and reduce your rates because there's a mob just standing up here. Eventually it might go away. If you unload the area, it will despawn. But if you just go ahead and do that right now, you're gonna be a lot better off. The other thing I recommend doing, but this is an optional thing, is go around to the sides and straight out from the spawner on all 4 sides, go ahead and place a redstone lamp. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to toggle this farm on and off. And the best reason to do that is because if you ever need to make adjustments to this mob farm, you're going to need to have a way to access it without getting killed. And the easiest way to do it is to make it so things don't spawn in here anymore. And the easiest way to do that is to just do this. If you just place a single redstone lamp on each of these, when it's lit up, no mobs can spawn in here, because that is the perfect light level for this entire room to make sure that nothing spawns. So now that that is done, what we're going to want to do is just rip out the floor and go down at least 2 blocks, but I recommend going down 4 blocks, because then you're going to be getting your mobs out of the spawn area faster. And the faster you get them out, the faster they're not going to be causing you to not get new spawns. and so you really wanna do that as quickly as possible. All right. So now what you could do is you could go ahead and take this opportunity to light up these lamps before you actually dig down. Now, I've already done the quote-unquote digging down, which obviously I just actually built the down. But what you might want to do if you are in survival is actually turn on these lamps next, especially if you actually are doing the lamps. If you're not actually installing the lamps, then don't do that. But if you are installing the lamps, you might want to go ahead and just do that now to make it a little bit easier. And so the best thing to do to make this super simple is just clear out a path all the way around, and then make sure you go back to the back on at least one side. Make sure you know which side you actually want to run this all from. So if you're standing over here, which is where we're going to have our spot for the kill chamber, then you're going to want to run everything from over here. So what you want to do is figure out where your wall inside your kill chamber is going to go, put down a block, and you could always make this temporary and just change it up later when you actually figure out what you really want. And then what I would do is I'd come in here and I'd throw a block right here. And part of the reason for throwing this block right here is actually going to be to make it so that this water chamber doesn't have a problem. But it's also a nice convenient way to do it. And then run your repeater right there. And on this one, we're going to add an extra block on top again for that kill chamber, or for that water chamber. And then we'll do the same thing here. And just the repeaters are important because they also will extend the signal and just make sure that everything lights. And then on this side, again, put a block right here and place this all the way back around into there. Now we pull out our lever, throw it onto this wall block, and turn it on. That should light up every single one of our redstone lamps, which will make it so that nothing can spawn in here. And now, before you get rid of this ground, if you're doing this method, like I do recommend, you can actually take out these torches, and you won't have any problems with the mob spawner spawning mobs, because again, those 4 redstone lamps is all it takes. So we are now safe to continue working in here without those torches, so we don't have to scaffold up or try anything crazy to get rid of those. So that's awesome. Alright, so now we need to verify that this is the front, this is the front. So what we're going to do is on the back side, so that's where we're going to have our kill chamber. So over here, we just throw in a water source on each side of the build. Then under the last place here, we're going to go ahead and break a single block, and then everything else that isn't currently covered in water. Now, obviously, I need to go through and fix the outside because I'm in a unique situation, but if you were digging underground, everything would be fine. Alright, so that's going to flush all of your mobs right here to the center. And now what we need to do is just dig back a couple of blocks, like so. Then we want to grab out a fence gate and place that right there. That's going to stop mobs from going, or that's going to stop the water from flowing into here, which means that this can do what it needs to do. And then here, we just want to dig up currently all the way out. Now, what you're going to want to do is grab a piece of soul sand and put it at the bottom of this, and then we're going to go ahead and fill this all up with water source blocks. Now you can either do that by, instead of doing the soul sand right off the bat, you could do any other block and then fill this with kelp and just have water at the top, or you could use water buckets repeatedly, or my favorite method these days is actually to just grab regular ice, fill this up, and then break the ice. That's the fastest method, but whatever method you want to use works just fine. Now, we need to make sure that we are within 16 blocks of this spot right here where we're standing to AFK. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we could go out up to 6 more blocks for our drop point. But I don't see any point in making it much further than necessary. So we're going to start right here. But remember, this is our floor level, actually, where we should be standing, because this is where the spawner is. Again, these lamps that are right here are in line with our spawner, and our spawner is right there. So we should stand on the level of our spawner. That's going to be the most efficient and best way to guarantee that we are within range. Now, we want to drop our mobs 23 blocks, but remember, we're going to be standing here, which means our mobs are going to fall here. So this block doesn't count. So we start here, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 22, 23. So now remember, this is the 23rd block, which means that's the block that they need to be standing on when they fall. So we need to bring up these guys a little bit extra high, and then come on in here. We need to continue with our source blocks of water. Now before we actually place this next one, let's prep this area. What we're going to want to do is build this as a chamber. Alright, so now we have that chamber fully done. So what we want to do, we'll just cut into the top here, and we want to grab out a sign and place it on this block right here. You could put something on it if you wanted to, but you certainly don't have to. And then we will grab out our water again and place a source there at the back. And now see how that's flowing forward? That's exactly what we want. So the bubble elevator is going to come all the way up to the top here, and our mobs are going to be forced. Ooh, we seem to have missed a spot. Forced up and then dropped down, just like that. And then we'll want to make sure we do go back up to the top and cap this off. Now, this is now done. This is actually fully functional at this point. However, there's a few things I do recommend. First of all, if you're working with zombies, obviously this 1 block gap is enough for them to attack you. You don't want that. So, also, you're going to probably want to grab your items from these zombies and skeletons, or that's half the point of this farm gone. So, go ahead and pull out your hoppers and your chests and build up whatever collection system it is that you want. So that they fall right here and land on that. I would also recommend throwing a piece of carpet onto that hopper, just in case. And then the other thing I recommend is that we pull out a slab and we slab one of the 2 blocks. So you could do that one or this one. Either way, I think there's a chance that the skeletons might try to shoot you here, but they really shouldn't be able to. So either way works just fine. And that is actually this farm completely done. I usually slab up this area here, but you certainly don't have to. And if we turn it on, we should notice that we're going to be getting some zombies coming down here. The one benefit of doing the upper slab is that you can actually get the experience a little bit easier. That's also why I recommend doing the carpet. If you don't... Whoops. If you don't do the carpet, what you can find is that some of your experience orbs will get caught in the hopper. So I just like to have that carpet there because it guarantees that that's not going to happen. If you do the slab on the upper half, you will only be able to get to their feet, and if you get too close it is a little bit annoying, but if you step back you can totally swing at them. And then you'll get the experience out easier. So that's just my recommendation. The other thing that I like to do personally is I will actually build this entire level out here on a slab. That does two things for me. Number one, I like to build most of my buildings on slabs because it makes them completely mob-proof. But it also, in this particular case, will line you up just a little bit better with this, so you can swing a little bit easier. You can just walk right on up and swing all you want. So I do recommend that personally, but completely preference, and whatever you like, that's what you do. Now, as far as the mob switch goes, it's not super important that you turn off the mob farm when you're not here, because if you're not within 16 blocks of the spawner, it's not going to create mobs anyway. But it is nice to have, and some servers would appreciate it if you did turn it on. But the biggest thing about it is you are guaranteed, if you have that, to be able to work on the farm safely in the future. So if any mechanics change, if any of the waterways stop working because of whatever happens, if you decide to expand it or change up your collection system or whatever, you have the ability to turn it off and work safely. And so I highly recommend that. And then also it's an easy way to deal with the torch situation inside. You don't have to try to sneak around and hit those torches and get out of there alive. You just flip a switch and you're all done. So that's my recommendation personally. I highly recommend it. It does take obviously a little bit of redstone and a little bit of glowstone because you have to make the redstone lamps, but I think it's well worth the trade-off. But that is how you build a mob farm. Now the other thing you could do... Alright, that took a hot minute, but the other thing you could do is you could throw some doggos on these two spots right here. And I don't believe, yeah, they won't do anything against your zombie friends, but... So yeah, if instead of a zombie spawner you had found a skeleton spawner, they should actually take out the skeleton. And we gotta just get rid of the zombies as they come in because they're not gonna do anything against them. Alright, now that will make your farm completely automated. You don't even have to swing a sword, and you can still get experience, and you can get your bones and your arrows and whatever else you get from your skeletons. Now the one thing, these dogs could eventually take some damage, so you do want to be careful with them. I would make sure you have a couple of extra ones nearby so you can replace them if and when it becomes necessary. Have a plan in place for that. But that is your skeleton farm done. This can't be glass, it turns out. I'm guessing it's because glass blocks the line of sight to the skeleton. But you do need something there, or else the skeleton could, in theory, just wander on out. So you need to put something there. So iron bar worked just fine. Fence post probably would be okay as well. Something like that. Maybe even a glass pane. This would fully automate your skeleton killing, but it only works for skeletons because dogs will only naturally attack skeletons. But they do it quite well, so that would take care of that. So that is mob farms. Now, if you are talking about other kinds of mob farms, they all work similarly. Anytime you have a mob spawner involved, they're all going to work about the same. The waterways are going to be a little bit different, and as you can see, they do get crammed up a little bit, but eventually they will push their way through as more skeletons come in here. So no need to really worry about that. There's no cap on it as long as they get down below here. So if they're within that spawning area, which is, I believe it's a 8x8x5 area, they will be counted as part of this spawner's range. But as long as they drop down below here, so here, they're no longer counted, so that will continue to try to spawn mobs while I'm standing here. So you don't need to worry about that mob cap, and they might clump up a little bit, but that's fine. But anyway, so any other mob spawner is going to work about the same. Now, spiders, for instance, obviously they're too wide and only one tall, so this particular elevator system is not going to work for you. So you'd have to change that up. But cave spiders are only half a block tall, so the capture system over here wouldn't work very well because you're going to end up with your cave spiders being able to crawl right on out and attack you. So every mod requires a little bit different, but this works beautifully for skeleton and zombie mobs, and everything else is going to be a similar idea and a similar design. But that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out. I hope this has been informative. And remember, folks, don't get trapped without me. Bye-bye.